The gentle hum of monitoring equipment filled the circular command center of Outpost 47. Officer Gray's antennae twitched slightly as he studied the sensor readings before him. After 15 years watching this sector of space, he had grown used to the quiet routine of tracking merchant vessels and cataloging space debris. But something about today's readings was different. A blip appeared on his screen, moving at speeds that shouldn't have been possible for such an apparently primitive vessel. Gray adjusted his sensors and ran the scan again. The results made no sense. The ship's outer hull appeared to be made of basic alloys. Its propulsion system was almost laughably simple, and its energy emissions suggested early space-age technology. Yet it was moving with precision that suggested far greater capabilities. "Command, we have an anomaly," Gray reported, his four-fingered hand moving across the holographic display to highlight the contact. "Unknown vessel approaching from Sector 7. Configuration doesn't match any known species in the database." Station Commander Bright floated over to Gray's station, her silvery skin reflecting the blue glow of the monitors. "Classification?" she asked, her translator converting her harmonic speech into standard galactic common. "That's the strange part," Gray said. "Initial scans suggest it's a primitive vessel, barely spaceworthy. But its movement patterns," he gestured to the trajectory plot. "No primitive ship could maintain such a precise course through the gravitational eddies in that sector." Commander Bright's eyes narrowed, all three of them focusing on the display. "Send the standard contact package. Remind them they are approaching Galactic Council space." Gray transmitted the automated greeting and warning message, a carefully crafted combination of mathematical sequences and universal constants that any spacefaring race should be able to understand. They waited. No response came. The strange ship continued its approach, maintaining its eerily precise course. Gray ran deeper scans, and the results only added to his unease. The energy readings from the vessel fluctuated in patterns that defied the laws of physics, at least the laws as he understood them. "Second warning," Commander Bright ordered. "Include the defensive protocols notification." Again, Gray sent the message. Again, silence was the only response. "Magnification, maximum," Commander Bright commanded. The main viewer activated, showing their first visual of the approaching vessel. It was ugly by Council standards, all hard angles and exposed structural elements, its hull bore markings in an unknown script, and what appeared to be primitive chemical rockets protruded from its stern. Yet something about it set off every instinct Gray had developed over his years of service. "Launch warning drones," Commander Bright ordered. "Standard intercept pattern." Gray complied, sending out the automated drones that had deterred countless unauthorized approaches over the years. The small machines moved to surround the incoming vessel, their warning lights pulsing in universal danger patterns. The strange ship didn't react. It maintained its course as if the drones weren't even there. This was unprecedented. Even the most aggressive species usually responded to a drone screen. "Energy spike," Gray called out suddenly. His instruments were reporting power readings that couldn't possibly be coming from those primitive engines. "The vessel is. Commander, these readings suggest they're powering some kind of advanced shielding system, but I'm not detecting any shield emitters." Commander Bright's skin shifted to a darker shade, a sign of growing concern. "Impossible. Their technology level couldn't support such systems. Run a diagnostic on the sensors." "Diagnostics show all systems functioning normally," Gray reported. "Commander, I don't think this ship is what it appears to be." The entire command center fell silent as that implication sank in. A vessel deliberately disguising its capabilities was unprecedented in Council space. Their entire civilization was built on transparency and technological cooperation. The idea of a species deliberately appearing less advanced than they were. It went against everything they believed about civilized behavior. "Defensive positions," Commander Bright ordered, her voice carrying the harmonic overtones of serious concern. "Alert all personnel." And she paused, considering her next words carefully. Begin recording everything. If this is first contact with a new species, it's unlike any first contact we've seen before. Gray's antennae quivered as he monitored the continuing approach of the mysterious vessel. In all his years of service, he had never encountered anything like this. The ship was a contradiction. Primitive yet advanced, obvious yet mysterious. As he watched it grow larger on his display, he couldn't shake the feeling that everything he knew about spacefaring civilizations was about to change. Captain Reed stood at the viewport of the UES Thunder, his weathered hands clasped behind his back, as he watched the alien station grow larger against the backdrop of stars. The bridge was unusually quiet, with only the soft beeping of instruments breaking the tense silence. Every crew member knew what was at stake. They'd launched their warning drones. First Officer Miller reported from her station. Her fingers moved across the holographic controls, adjusting their sensor mask to maintain the illusion of primitive technology. Still no sign they've detected our true capabilities. Reed nodded slowly. The Thunder's deception systems were doing their job, making the advanced warship appear to be nothing more than a basic space vessel. It was a strategy humanity had perfected over decades of quiet observation of the galaxy. While the Galactic Council thought Earth was still struggling with early spaceflight, humans had spread throughout dozens of star systems. How long until the invasion fleet enters their detection range? Reed asked, though he already knew the answer. The numbers had been burning in his mind since they'd first picked up the signals. 3 days, sir, Miller replied. The Council station's current sensor settings won't detect them until it's too late. That was the problem. The Council's rigid adherence to protocol meant their sensors were calibrated only for expected threats. They would never think to look for the kind of ships that were coming. Ships that made the Thunder's deception technology look primitive in comparison. Sir, they're broadcasting another warning message, the communications officer reported. Same format as before, basic math and physics constants. Reed almost smiled at the irony. The aliens thought they were dealing with primitives who might barely understand mathematics, while his ship's quantum computers were already processing the message through 14 different encryption protocols out of habit. Maintain radio silence, Reed ordered. Let's see how they react to our continued approach. He walked to the main tactical display, studying the growing cluster of warning drones around his ship. Status of the package. Ready for transmission, sir, Miller said. Full data on the incoming fleet, including their cloaking frequencies and attack patterns. Everything we've gathered over the past month of tracking them. The information had cost them dearly. 3 scout ships lost, their crews sacrificing themselves to gather detailed scans of the invasion fleet. The Council needed this information, whether they wanted it or not. Their mighty civilization was about to face something they'd never imagined possible. They're powering up their defensive grid, Miller reported suddenly. Nothing serious yet, but they're definitely getting nervous. Reed watched as new energy readings appeared on his display. The Council station's defenses were impressive by most standards, but they wouldn't last 5 minutes against what was coming. That was why the Thunder was here, trying one last time to warn them. Status of our mask, Reed asked, moving back to his command chair. Holding steady, sir. As far as they can tell, we're still just a primitive ship that doesn't know any better than to wander into their space. The truth was far different. The Thunder was one of humanity's most advanced vessels, capable of going toe-to-toe with anything in known space. But right now, its true power was hidden behind layers of carefully designed interference patterns and energy sinks that made it look like a ship held together with little more than hope and basic physics. Sir, Miller's voice carried a note of concern. They're charging weapons. Low yield, but enough to damage us if we were what we appear to be. Reed leaned forward in his chair. This was the critical moment. Tactical, prepare for minimal defense activation. Just enough to surprise them, not enough to show our full hand. He paused, looking at each of his bridge crew in turn. Remember, we're not here to fight. We're here to save them, even if they don't know it yet. The station's weapons would fire soon. When they did, the thunder would have to show just enough capability to make them pause and think. It was a delicate balance, revealing enough to get their attention, while keeping their true capabilities hidden in case this mission failed. They would only get one chance at this. All hands, ready stations, read ordered. Let's show our friends out there that books shouldn't be judged by their covers. The first shots from the Council station sliced through space. Brilliant beams of energy aimed to disable what they thought was a primitive vessel. Officer Gray watched with growing unease as the targeting computers locked onto the intruding ship. The attack should have been simple and quick, a standard show of force to drive away an unwanted visitor. Instead, the beams hit nothing but empty space. The strange vessel had moved, just slightly, just enough. It wasn't the clumsy dodging of a lucky pilot, but a precise, calculated maneuver that should have been impossible for a ship of its apparent level of technology. Direct hit missed, Gray reported, his antennae twitching rapidly now. Sir, their evasion pattern. It's as if they knew exactly where we would fire. Commander Bright's skin rippled with patches of dark color. Impossible. Their sensors shouldn't be able to detect our targeting systems. She floated closer to the main display, all three eyes fixed on the mysterious ship. Launch combat drones. Full spread. Gray complied, sending out 20 of their most advanced autonomous fighters. The drones shot out from the station's launch tubes, their artificial intelligence systems already plotting intercept courses. These weren't simple warning drones. They were meant for actual combat, capable of overwhelming most modern ships. The strange vessel's response left everyone on the command deck speechless. Points of light flickered around its hull. Primitive chemical rockets, by all sensor readings. But those simple countermeasures somehow confused the drone's advanced targeting systems. 3 drones collided with each other. 4 more spun off course, and the rest couldn't seem to lock onto the target. How? Commander Bright's voice carried harmonics of pure disbelief. Those are basic flares and chaff. Our drones are designed to ignore such simple countermeasures. Gray's fingers flew across his console, running deeper scans. Commander, I'm detecting patterns in their defensive measure. The flares aren't random. They're creating some kind of interference field that our systems can't compensate for. On the main screen, more drones spun out of control, their complex attack algorithms confused by what should have been useless primitive defenses. The intruding ship continued its approach, still moving with that impossible precision. Launch another wave, Commander Bright ordered, her voice tight with tension. Different attack pattern. They can't have countermeasures for everything. The second wave of drones shot out from the station. This time, they spread wider, approaching from multiple angles. The strange ship's response was immediate. More flares, more chaff, but arranged in a different pattern. The result was the same. Drones either lost their targeting lock or crashed into each other. Sir, Gray said, his voice low with realization, I don't think those are really flares and chaff. The energy readings, they're too precise, too coordinated. They're making their advanced defenses look primitive, just like they're hiding their true propulsion systems. Commander Bright slowly turned all 3 eyes toward him. You're suggesting they're deliberately appearing less advanced than they are. That's against everything we know about technological development. No species would hide their true capabilities. It goes against all logical progression. Before Gray could respond, new alarms blared across his console. Energy spike. The vessel is, sir, they're powering up something. Something big. The command deck watched in stunned silence as sections of the approaching ship's hull seemed to shimmer and change. What had looked like crude armor plating rippled like water, revealing glimpses of far more sophisticated technology underneath. It was all a disguise, Gray whispered. Everything we've been seeing was just a mask. Commander Bright's skin had gone almost completely dark, a sign of extreme stress in her species. Full battle stations, she ordered. All weapons, all defenses. Whatever they are, whatever they want. We can't take any more chances. But Gray wasn't sure that would be enough. His sensors were now picking up energy readings that dwarfed anything in the station's defensive capabilities. If this mysterious ship wanted to attack them, they would have already done so. They were trying to prove something, show something. "Commander," he said, making a decision that went against years of training. I think we need to try talking to them again. But this time, not as primitives who wandered into our space, as equals who might have something important to tell us." Captain Reed watched the last wave of alien drones spin harmlessly away from his ship. The time had come. They'd proven their point about the station's defensive weaknesses. Now they needed to show them why. "Drop the mask," he ordered. "Pattern Alpha. Let's show them just enough to make them listen." First Officer Miller nodded, her fingers dancing across the control panel. "Dropping outer camouflage layers now, sir. Keeping core systems masked, just in case." The Thunder's hull began to change. The seemingly crude metal plates rippled and shifted, revealing the true nature of the ship beneath. Layers of quantum-locked armor became visible, along with rows of advanced weapon ports that had been disguised as simple maintenance hatches. The primitive chemical rockets transformed into state-of-the-art plasma thrusters. On the station's command deck, Officer Gray stared at his readings in disbelief. The sensor data streaming across his screen told a story that challenged everything he thought he knew about technological progression. Energy signatures he'd never seen before pulse from the vessel. Materials that shouldn't exist outside of theoretical papers showed up in his scans. "By the Council's stars," Commander Bright whispered, her skin shifting through patterns of shock and awe. "What are we looking at, Gray?" "The ship's true form, I think," Gray replied, his antennae quivering with excitement and fear. "These readings, their power core alone is more advanced than anything in our database. The whole material appears to be some kind of adaptive quantum matrix. Their weapons," he paused, double-checking the numbers. "Their weapons could have destroyed this station 10 times over by now." Reed's voice came over the Thunder's comm system. "All stations, report status." "Engineering reports all systems nominal," Miller said. "The mask drop didn't strain any systems. We're ready for anything." "Tactical confirms all defensive systems are online," another officer reported. "We're tracking every weapon on that station. They can't surprise us now." Reed nodded slowly. The next few moments would determine everything. Either the aliens would panic and attack, forcing the Thunder to defend itself, or they would realize the implications of what they were seeing and listen. On the station, Commander Bright floated in stunned silence as more and more of the Thunder's true capabilities became clear. Every scan revealed new mysteries, new impossibilities. The ship before them wasn't just advanced. It represented a completely different path of technological development than anything the Council had ever encountered. "They're sending a transmission," Gray announced suddenly. "Text only, using our standard protocols." He paused, reading the message. "Sir, they say they come in peace. They say they have vital information about an incoming threat, something that could destroy both our civilizations." "How?" Commander Bright demanded. "How could a species this advanced have hidden from us? Why would they pretend to be primitive?" The answer came in another text transmission. Gray'd read it aloud. "Because not everyone in the galaxy plays by the Council's rules. Because sometimes the best defense is to be underestimated. Because right now, that same strategy might be the only thing that saves your people from what's coming." Reed stood on the Thunder's bridge, watching the alien station's reactions through their sensors. He could almost feel the confusion and disbelief radiating from them. It was a lot to take in, not just the existence of a highly advanced human civilization, but the idea that everything they thought they knew about technological development might be wrong. "They're powering down their weapons," Miller reported. "And, sir, they're dropping their defensive screens. I think they want to talk." Reed allowed himself a small smile. This was the moment they'd hoped for, the reason they'd gone through this elaborate demonstration instead of just trying to force their way in. The station's crew needed to understand that humans weren't just another spacefaring race that followed the Council's carefully planned paths of development. They were something different, something that thought outside the neat boxes the Council had created. Open a channel. Reed ordered. Full communication protocols. It's time they learned about the storm that's coming, and why being predictable in space is the fastest way to extinction. Officer Gray took a deep breath before activating the direct communication channel. He had defied several protocols to establish this link, but something told him it was the right choice. The mysterious ship had proven itself far too advanced to be a threat. If they wanted to attack, the station would already be destroyed. Unknown vessel, this is Officer Gray of Outpost 47. We are willing to listen. His translator converted his harmonic speech into standard Galactic Common. The response came immediately, in perfect Galactic Common. Officer Gray, this is Captain Reed of the UES Thunder. Thank you for being willing to open your mind to new possibilities. Commander Bright floated forward, her skin still showing patches of dark color from stress. Captain Reed, you must understand our confusion. Your ship's capabilities violate everything we know about technological development. How is this possible? A soft chuckle came through the channel. Commander, with respect, that's exactly the problem. Your certainty about how technology must develop is a weakness, one that others are preparing to exploit. Reed nodded to his communications officer, who began transmitting data to the station. On Gray's screen, images and sensor readings began to appear. They showed massive ships, hundreds of them, using technology that seemed to break the laws of physics in ways even the Thunder didn't. 3 days ago, Reed explained, we detected this fleet entering the outer reaches of this sector. They're using technology that even we don't fully understand. Technology that your sensors won't detect until it's too late. Gray studied the readings with growing horror. The energy signatures were like nothing he'd ever seen. These ships, they're completely invisible to our standard detection protocols. Exactly, Reed said. They know how the Council thinks. They know what you look for, what you ignore. Just like we've hidden our true capabilities, they've developed completely outside your understanding of what's possible. Commander Bright's skin had gone almost white, a sign of extreme distress. How long have you known about us? About the Council? We've been watching for decades, Reed replied. Learning, observing, staying hidden. We saw how the Council treated species that developed along different paths, how you forced them to conform to your standards or face isolation. So we hid, developing our technology in ways you wouldn't expect. Gray's antennae twitched as he processed more of the sensor data. These invasion ships, they're using some kind of dimensional technology we thought was impossible. Impossible by Council standards, Reed corrected. But they, like us, found different paths. Unfortunately, their path led them to believe that all other civilizations must be eliminated. The command deck fell silent as the implications sank in. Their entire system of beliefs about technological progress, about what was and wasn't possible, had been based on assumptions that were now crumbling. We need to warn the Council, Commander Bright said finally. But they'll never believe this without proof. That's why we're here, Reed explained. The Thunder carries full sensor logs of our encounters with their scout ships. We lost good people getting this information. We could have stayed hidden, let you face this threat alone. But humanity has learned that sometimes the best way to survive is to help others survive too. Gray looked up from his console. Their weapons technology, their stealth systems, they're designed specifically to bypass Council defenses, almost as if they've been planning this for a very long time. Reed finished. Yes, they know your weaknesses because, like us, they've been watching. Unlike us, they don't want to coexist. They want to conquer. Commander Bright moved to Gray's station, studying the data with all 3 eyes. How do we fight an enemy we can barely detect? Our entire defense network is based on known technological principles. That's where we come in, Reed said, his voice carrying a note of determination. Humanity has spent generations thinking differently, finding unexpected solutions. Together, we might have a chance. Apart, we'll both fall. Gray looked at his commander, seeing the moment of decision in her changing skin colors. Everything they thought they knew about technology, about progress, about what was possible in space, it all had to change, right now, if they wanted to survive. The next few hours transformed the Council Station's command deck into a whirlwind of activity. Screens displayed data from the Thunder sensor logs while human technical experts shared their knowledge through the communication link. The station's crew struggled to adapt to ideas that challenged their most basic assumptions about space warfare. "Your stealth systems," Gray said, studying the technical readouts Captain Reed had shared. "They don't try to hide energy signatures. They make them look like something else entirely." His antennae twitched with excitement as he understood. That's brilliant. The Council's sensors are designed to detect energy hiding, but not energy disguise. Reed's voice came through the comm system. Exactly. The best way to hide something isn't to make it invisible. It's to make people think they're seeing something else entirely. That's why the invasion fleet has gone undetected for so long. Commander Bright floated between workstations, her skin shifting through patterns of deep thought. "We need to reconfigure our entire sensor network, not to look for what's hidden, but to look for what's pretending to be something else." She paused at a display showing the Thunder's adaptive hull technology. "How quickly can we implement these changes?" "That's the problem," Reed replied. "We have less than 70 hours before the invasion fleet arrives. We can't rewrite centuries of Council doctrine in 3 days, but we can improvise." First Officer Miller's voice joined the conversation. "We've transmitted the basic principles of our masking technology. Your engineers might not be able to replicate it completely, but they can use the same ideas to modify your existing systems." The station's engineering deck had become a fusion of Council and human thinking. Council engineers, used to following strict technological protocols, watched in amazement as human technical advisors suggested modifications that should have been impossible. Sensor arrays were rewired in ways that violated standard procedures, but somehow produced better results. "Look at this," Gray called out, pointing to his modified sensor display. "By changing the detection algorithms to look for patterns instead of power signatures, we can see." He adjusted several controls, and suddenly the space around the station lit up with previously invisible energy traces. Commander Bright's skin paled. "Those are all ships." "No," Reed explained. "Most are echoes, false signals created by the enemy's stealth systems. But now that we can see them, we can start learning to tell the difference between what's real and what's deception." The station's tactical officer, who had been quietly processing the human combat data, spoke up. "Their battle strategies are completely different from Council doctrine. They don't follow any of the standard attack patterns. It's like they're playing an entirely different game." "Because they are," Miller replied. "They know the Council expects enemies to fight in certain ways, to follow certain rules. Their entire strategy is based on breaking those expectations." Gray watched as another simulation played out on his screen. The invasion fleet's ships moved in ways that made no tactical sense by Council standards, but were devastatingly effective against traditional defenses. "We need to think differently," he said. "All of us." Commander Bright gathered her senior staff around the main tactical display. "Show me everything you've learned about their weapons. If we can't fight them conventionally, we need new tactics. Now." The next hours passed in a blur of new ideas and radical suggestions. Council crew members who had spent their careers following established protocols now found themselves considering strategies that would have seemed insane just days ago. The Thunder's crew shared everything they knew about fighting unconventionally, about using an enemy's expectations against them. The station's power grid, a human engineer suggested through the comm. "If we reverse the standard energy flow patterns, we could create a false signature that might confuse their targeting systems." "Our defensive screens," a Council technician added, catching on to the new way of thinking. "Instead of trying to block their weapons, We could tune them to redirect the energy. Make them think they're hitting us when they're actually hitting nothing. Reed smiled as he watched the collaboration unfold on his bridge monitors. The council crew was adapting faster than he'd hoped, learning to think beyond their rigid training. They might not have time to make the station invulnerable, but they could make it unexpected. And in space combat, being unexpected was often the difference between survival and destruction. The first sign of the invasion fleet's arrival wasn't a sensor reading or an energy spike. It was a subtle distortion in the starfield, like heat waves rising from hot ground. Officer Gray noticed it immediately, his newly modified sensors picking up the traces that would have been invisible just days ago. "Contact," he announced, his voice steady despite his quivering antennae. "Multiple signatures appearing at the edge of our detection range. They're using dimensional shifts, just like the Thunder's data showed." Commander Bright's skin rippled with determination as she took her position at the command station. "All hands to battle stations. Remember your training, both old and new." The council station had changed dramatically in the past 3 days. Weapon systems had been rewired, defensive screens reconfigured, and sensor arrays modified far beyond their original specifications. It wasn't pretty. Cables ran through corridors, makeshift control panels had been installed, and none of it followed council regulations. But it worked. Captain Reed's voice came through the comm system. "We're picking them up too. Counting at least 30 ships in the first wave. They're using the same approach pattern we saw before." The Thunder had taken up position near the station, its true form now fully visible. The human warship's presence had caused quite a stir when the first council relief ships arrived, but there was no time for political discussions now. "Here they come," Gray reported as the first enemy ships fully materialized. They were massive vessels, their hulls covered in technology that seemed to bend reality around them. Under normal circumstances, they would have been nearly invisible to council sensors. But these weren't normal circumstances. "Target the false signatures," Reed commanded. "Remember, what you see isn't always where they are." The station's modified weapons fired, not at the enemy ships themselves, but at the distortions around them. Energy beams that would have normally passed harmlessly through their stealth fields now found purchase in their hulls. The invasion fleet's response was immediate and brutal. Space lit up with weapons fire unlike anything the Council had ever seen. But the station's new defenses, jury-rigged from a combination of Council technology and human ingenuity, held firm. "Their targeting systems are confused," Gray called out, watching his displays. "The power grid reversal is working. They can't get a clear lock on our actual position." The Thunder moved with impossible grace for a ship its size, drawing fire away from the station while landing precise hits on the enemy vessels. The human ship's deceptive technology, now used offensively, made it appear to be in multiple places at once. Commander Bright watched as her crew, working alongside human advisors, fought in ways that would have been unthinkable just days ago. Council tactical officers ignored standard attack patterns in favor of unpredictable maneuvers. Engineering teams rerouted power in ways that violated every safety protocol, but produced remarkable results. "Second wave incoming," Reed warned. "They're adapting to our tactics, switching to pattern Delta." The battle became a dance of deception and counter-deception. The invasion fleet, used to preying on predictable enemies, found itself facing opponents who refused to follow the rules. Every time they adjusted their tactics, the combined human council forces responded with something new and unexpected. Gray's modified sensors picked up signs of confusion in the enemy fleet's movements. Their perfectly coordinated attacks began to show signs of hesitation. Ships designed to exploit Council weaknesses found themselves facing defenses that didn't behave like Council technology should. "Their formation is breaking," Miller reported from the Thunder. "They've never encountered resistance like this. They don't know how to handle enemies who think differently." The battle reached its turning point when 3 enemy ships, their stealth systems damaged by the station's reconfigured weapons, tried to retreat. The sight of the mighty invasion fleet falling back sparked cheers across both the station and the thunder. "They're running," Commander Bright announced, her skin glowing with victory colors. "All ships, maintain pursuit. Don't let them regroup." As the remaining enemy vessels flowed back into dimensional space, Reed opened a channel to the station. "Well done, everyone. This was just the first wave, and they'll be back with new tactics. But now they know that the galaxy isn't as predictable as they thought." Gray looked around at his modified sensor station, at the chaos of improvised technology that had helped save them all. "Maybe that's the real lesson here," he said. "The most dangerous assumption in space is thinking you know all the rules." Commander Bright's skin shifted to show agreement. "Indeed. And thanks to our human friends, we've learned that lesson just in time."